Episode 133. Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself.
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
And it's that time of the day, ladies and gentlemen, noon GMT, from Monday to Friday, the very best podcast in the world, your only source in the universe for personal supremacy through health, wealth, and happiness. And I welcome you wholeheartedly to episode 133, Be Tolerant with Others and Strict with Yourself. Now, if we believe the deliveries, this is a quote by Marcus Aurelius, a famous stoicist. I think the most famous stoicist. This kind of came to my attention when I did yesterday's episode, when I recorded yesterday's episode, which was about maximum awareness and the present moment, in which we discussed pretty much a very interesting example of awareness in context to a situation where you were in a situation with your superior and they had a bad day, and you are aware enough to notice that they're having a bad day and they start chewing at you, and you then basically go ahead and ignore it because you don't want to escalate the situation, which would deteriorate your chances for a good relationship in the future with your boss. It took about 20 seconds. So I'm pretty proud of kind of summing that example up, right? So since that kind of fit with the message that this quote delivered, I was kind of curious to relay, or not relay, but to emphasize and go drill into more detail, into a smaller granularity with you, the example of being tolerant with others and being strict with yourself and what the consequences are, right? So I think tolerance is like preached and wine is drunken. No, I haven't had any. Sorry to disappoint you there. I was just jiggling about my stupid English. But the point I'm trying to make is everybody is talking about tolerance. They're talking about more tolerance towards racial issues. They're talking about tolerance towards the LGBT community. They're talking about more tolerance towards religions, and even those who, even towards religious extremists. And they're talking about tolerance towards anything and everybody. And while that is good, in a sense, you should be tolerant of others and of others' race and of others' creed and of others' whatever. The problem is that you can't preach water and drink wine. And I think tolerance is one of the most difficult things to actually put into action. And despite the fact that I'm quite aware that I want to be tolerant, there comes this line when an idiot is an idiot, right? And that's not because they're an idiot per se, that's because they are intolerant. So it's kind of like you need to match tolerance with a certain degree of tolerance from the other side of the communication, because otherwise it will be a one-way tolerance, which will kind of, create this uneasy feeling in yourself simply because you're not getting anywhere, right? This fucker across the room doesn't understand why you like him, right? And there are those who then go on to argue that, I'm so unlikable. And, those are the kind of energy vampires that we discussed in a previous episode, and how to deal with them, by the way. And it's like, okay, so why is it so difficult to actually put tolerance into action? And once you figure that out, let me know. Honestly, though, I think, we would inevitably have to go back to yesterday's episode, which was about awareness, right? So you're sitting across from this motherfucker that doesn't want to understand your position, right? Your position of tolerance. You accept him for being a motherfucker, for being an idiot, for being a complete moron, right? You are tolerant. And this asshole doesn't get it. He keeps on pushing towards you, and tries to Karen you, and tries to provoke you into not liking him. And that's a difficult uphill battle that you're fighting. Trust me. But as soon as you become aware that you are that you're becoming intolerant, and you kind of, there are multiple things you can do. You can pull out of the situation by saying, hey, sorry, we ain't getting nowhere, motherfucker. I'm out. And this is it. Here's the line. It's drawn. You don't want to get anywhere. You don't want to tolerate my position in life. I thereby tolerate yours, but here's a line. I'm out. You just crossed it. And that's one of the, I think, most or the best way out of a situation like that, because there are others, but they're less successful and they require you to suck up a lot more than you actually want to. Because believe it or not, tolerance isn't ultimate. It's not infinite. It's not something you can keep up forever, because, everyone snaps sometime, right? There's this thing called pain tolerance, for instance, which theorizes that, some people are more tolerant towards pain than others. It's this presumed unimaginable pain that women have during experience during birth that men will probably not, but the man flu is similarly devious. Trust me, ladies. Anyhow, that being said, let's cut it with a tolerance, because I think that's very important, a very important lesson to be learned. Perhaps one additional thing, being tolerant of mistakes other people make, particularly if you work with them. If other people make mistakes, you failed, period. Because you should have been that second set of eyes on the work that they're doing, particularly if you're in a supervisory position towards them. And there is no reason to be strict with them. Because if that error happens, you failed. Period. No discussion. End of discussion. We're there. Done. Got the t-shirt. So very often tolerance ends when mistakes happen, right? Let's take this to the work environment. You have a subordinate. They make a mistake. And at the end of the day, you're the one to blame because you fucked up. That's it. Period. Done. And that's where we can kind of build the bridge towards being strict with yourself. Now, you could expect that, your subordinate would have the intellectual capacity to avoid that mistake, right? No. That's where the strictness in yourself supersedes. You were too lax. You didn't pay attention, and the mistake happened because for whatever reason, I just envision this stupid Facebook video going viral of this guy driving a forklift in this warehouse, and the whole warehouse comes together because obviously he fell asleep on the forklift and ran into one of the aisles, right? And so the whole thing collapses. And the supervisor should have made sure that his employee is up to working. And if they are not up to, in a physical or mental condition to work, to operate a forklift, they should have sent them home. So yeah, the supervisor is to blame. Period. It's the 4I principle. There's situations where you would say, okay, I'm fit to work. And your supervisor sees your, 2-foot eye rings below your eyes because you were out working yesterday and you fall asleep on the forklift. Sure, it's the supervisor's fault, period. That's why he's a supervisor, or they're a supervisor. So, that's a situation where you say, bitch, go home. You're not fit to work, and I'll take over for you. And that's where another thing about strictness and discipline with yourself come in. And I think actually that's one of the core statements that Aurelius tried to make with this quote. It's about if other people fuck up, mostly it's your fault. Being tolerant towards others for whatever they are, whatever they represent, whatever they stand. You don't need to be friends with them. That's not what tolerance is about. Tolerance in a degree is, of course, about friendship. It's about, I tolerate you as a friend, right? Despite the fact that you have different worldviews, but there are certain things we match up in which makes us good friends. The chemistry is right. So let's be friends, and you have your worldview, I have mine, but there are certain things aligned which, make us great friends. Boom, done. Right. And even about your surrounding, being tolerant about people being, running through the city dressed differently. What's the fucking problem? If you see like a goth bitch running through the city in her black dress and black tights and black boots and black hair, and that's her decision to make. And it's your fucking decision as a responsible human being to be tolerant of that. Because she doesn't want to be as boring as you are, or the way you are dressed. She doesn't want that. Right? And is it hurting you? Yeah, you get, fictitious eye cancer from some people pushing it. But at the end of the day, does it really matter? It doesn't. Right? So in that sense, I hope I was able to convey or interpret correctly what Aurelius was trying to say. I know there are going to be a lot of philosophers out there who are going to say, yeah, but you got it wrong because, no. Be tolerant, motherfucker. But do send any feedback that you want to the very best podcast in the world at gmail.com. And make sure to share this episode with the most intolerant motherfucker or bitch that's out there. I'm cussing a lot so that I justify the explicit content sticker, by the way. If you haven't subscribed, shame on you. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you visit theverybestpodcastintheworld.com, you are going to find below every post a list of pretty much any platform that publishes podcasts. And we're there. So there's no excuse not to be subscribed. Anyhow, let's wrap this up. I wish you a successful day. If you have had your successful day, I wish you good night. And we'll be in touch tomorrow when we're going to take another outtake of yesterday's episode. It's going to be determining our future, because the episode is going to be called The Future Doesn't Exist. Right? So in that sense, have a good night. Have a successful day, and we'll be in touch tomorrow. Peace out. Stay tuned. See you tomorrow.